Good evening, everyone. Can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Colne Town Council and also wish everyone a happy new year. We should also congratulate Leah, who's our allotments and contract manager, on the birth of her daughter. And I understand that mother and baby are doing well. Okay. Have we got any apologies?
Yes, I've got apologies from Councillor Bell, Councillor Butterworth, Councillor Howarth, Councillor Lord, Councillor Moffat and Councillor Wildman. I've also had apologies sent from Councillor Sutcliffe.
Thank you. The next item is declaration of interest. Has anyone a declaration of interest?
Yeah, sorry, was Councillor Clamp mentioned in that?
Oh, he wasn't, no. Yeah.
Councillor Thomas. Any declarations of interest for anything that's on the agenda today? No. The next item is to approve the minutes as a correct record from the meeting on the 17th of December. Is there any issues with these minutes? Any questions or anything? No. Can I have a proposer and seconder then? I've got a proposer from Howard and one from Patricia. Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Now, before we go on, I want to bring an emergency motion to this meeting. And this motion is concerning the woeful response by Lancashire County Council to the snow and ice which fell last week and resulting in Colne and its environs, streets and roads becoming treacherous due to the lack of gritting. The shocking lack of gritting on the steep streets, the shocking response to reporting empty grit bins, particularly on these steep streets and around older people's residence, has been unacceptable. The iced up roads and street have been lethal for well over a week now. And the amount of calls we've had from residents, particularly those marooned in their homes, has been very, very upsetting. The people of Colne and in this chamber deserve better from LCC. So I propose that this council write to Lancashire County Council about how Colne feels let down and expects much better response to weather-related issues for the rest of the winter. I don't know whether anyone else has got anything to say about this. I've got Patricia.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I know I'm not a resident of Colne, but I do share the Chair's comments because I live in one of those side streets that was. I've only just cleared the snow this morning, thanks to the rain over the last couple of days. As a carer myself for other people, I'm having to find alternate ways of getting out of my street so I can do my job as a carer. It is undeniably selfish of the LCC to not provide pure, make sure that all the bins are either full with sand or grit, not only that, the only time that they do any gritting around is around by the schools and the main roads. Don't they realise that not everybody lives by a school or lives by a main road? We need our streets, especially the ones where we've got elderly residents or disabled residents, not just elderly residents, but disabled residents. We need to make sure that those streets, those footpaths are clear for them at all times. So I support your motion, Chair.
Councillor Ian Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. It's been a nightmare, I agree, in that we were lucky on Exchange Street. We actually had our street gritted after 3 days. But for that time, normally Exchange Street's very, very busy during the day. For 2 days, there was no vehicles at all. I saw one or two trying bravely to attempt it and just failed. There was a car on its Chapel Fold on the second day, third day was abandoned. Got that far and just gave up. And I've never seen this before. It's just horrendous. And if you're proposing the motion from the chair, I'll second it.
I mean, it was people who aren't particularly disabled, but have some sort of mobility issues or not very good on the feet. And they were actually marooned in their house for a week. They couldn't go out at all. It was just unacceptable.
I've got a bit of a sort of mixed report from our perspective, Lidget, and sort of a more rural area. Obviously, LCC have priority routes, and they did those. They really did. So, for example, Skipton Old Road, which is where we live, they not only gritted it, they snowplowed it too. And it's understandable that they do the priority routes because they are going from one town to another or one county to another, and they focus on those. And then they did the second priority routes on sort of day 2 or 3, and they're all classified. Obviously, Colne has an awful lot of side streets, and I can quite see they're not on a priority route. If you're, well, actually, you don't have to be elderly or disabled. I mean, it's really daunting. We've been nearly falling over in our own yard. Yeah. I don't know what you do about that, truth be told, because those side streets that are on a hill, we're on a hill in Colne, they can't be doing all of them. And I know that, say, Park Primary was closed because the side streets were so bad. We used to live for a little while in Coling, and what we noticed there was that, this is a job for Nathan, is that the pavements were done by the town council. It wasn't Yorkshire County Council. It was just a quad bike doing the pavements.
I think we offered
right
Lancashire County Council that our lensman would do with them.
Oh, and what did they say?
Well, they thought it was a good idea, but then never.
Well,
never came back to us.
I think absolutely we need to be putting that in any response that you write. Another thing that really worried me was that people complained to me that their grit bins were empty, and I thought it was, truth be told, grit bin abuse. I thought that somebody had perhaps gone along and sneakily taken the grit and used it on their drive. But more and more people reported it, and I said, you should use the Love Clean Streets app to have the grit bin filled. Then on closer inspection, and I've already complained about this, but I think we ought to put this in the letter, their app does not have all the grit bins that we've got on it. And certainly in Trawden, which I know is outside this area, literally it had no grit bins at all, which is obviously ridiculous. But as soon as that was reported, less than 24 hours, and LCC really, really got a shift on, and they put something, they didn't fill them, they put something in every single grit bin at that point. So, well, they did in my area, and, certainly the Trawden Clerk will back up, and certainly in Lidget as well. But the fact that on the app, which is what we're telling everyone to use, that it didn't have you mark a green dot for the asset, that obviously is a black mark against them. So I think the picture is sort of nuanced. They did the priority routes. They then did the second priority routes. They gritted and they snowplowed. They admitted that they'd made a mistake with the grit bins that were not on the system, and they went round and did them within a day. They should have replied to you about the side streets, because that would make such a difference for the town centre and for areas near old people. Why wouldn't they work with you on that? I don't understand that. That's just mad to me.
We have since contacted them again, and they did send us the routes, so we could see
what had been done.
Well, yeah, or we can see like how much work it would be.
Yeah.
I know Pendle Borough Council do a bit, so we said, well, we would happy to work with Pendle, you know, and cover days that they can't or areas that they can't. And
so
try and
Pendle
help out
Council,
that
for
way.
example, they did the bridge over to Fisher Moor. The headmaster got in contact with me, and the Pendle Council, within hours, Keith Higson was there on that bridge. And I wrote to the headmaster and said, you can thank Keith when the year seven's doing their double maths test. They can be grateful to Keith for doing this bridge. So I think actually, genuinely, there are good things and bad things. Did they do the high level things, the main routes? They did. Would we give them much more than a C or even a C minus? No, we wouldn't. Are there a lot of residents who felt trapped? Yes, there are. But I think really it's down to us, not just to write a really horrid letter. We should write a constructive letter and say the good bits, but also say the bad bits as well. And hopefully it'll be better next time. And certainly at least get all those grip bins on the Love Clean Streets app.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I wouldn't give them 3 out of 10. They may have filled the grip bins in Trawden, but there's a grip bin down Spring Lane near the Peter Birtwistle houses that's been reported 3 times, and on Sunday still didn't have any grit in it. And whilst on Spring Lane, Spring Lane, when you come down it, you turn left because it's one way. They hadn't gritted down there. It was lethal still on Sunday. The problem is the people in Preston haven't got a clue of what conditions are like over here. It's the flatlands, and they don't really understand it. Yes, they did the priority routes, and I think that the crews that were working in the gritters did a good job, but it's at the top level where the system completely falls down, as witnessed by the fact that some grip bins aren't even on the thing. It's the oversight of it that's absolutely hopeless. What they could have done was, and it wasn't as if we weren't warned about the fact that some bad weather was coming over Saturday night into Sunday. But they appear to always be reacting. They're always on the back foot. They're never particularly proactive at it. I'm glad that we've now got some replies from the county and Pendle so that we can add our resources to that. But really, they've let this part of the county down badly. Now, it wasn't as well as if the whole of Lancashire was snowed under. Certainly, I travelled to Burnley on back end of last week, and although they'd had some snow, there was nowhere near the amount we'd had due to that extra few feet that we are up. Certainly Burnley town centre and Yorkshire Street and around was hardly any. And you could tell that as you drove down the motorway just by looking at the amount of snow that was on the fields at the side of the motorway. So a bit of common sense from some supervisor within Lancashire County Council could have said, well, hey lads, you don't need to do quite as much there because there isn't the problem. There is 10 miles, however many miles up the road we are from Burnley, maybe not 10. So it boils down to, I think, to the leadership. When Pendle had the highways agency work, the gritting never was as bad as it has been since Lancashire took it all back under their one roof. Perhaps the one slight advantage of having a devolved, albeit huge, one-tier county may be based on East Lancashire. We know what the conditions are like, and we might get the service that we deserve.
Thank you. I can't understand. Well, everybody knew the east, as you went east, it would get worse. And what got me was that if you look at Thornton in Craven, that was the Yorkshire side had done really well, and we looked like the absolute poor sister of what could have we had, but what we didn't. So do you all agree that we should write to Lancashire County Council and put all those issues on? Yeah. Oh, you would. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
North Yorkshire, they actually rescued a Lancashire gritter on Wiswick.
That's in the Abbey, if you don't know where we see.
Mary, have you got some wordings?
The next item is Clerk's update. Oh, can I just say we've got someone here. I presume you're just observing because I don't think you've put in a request to speak. But if you haven't sent in that you were going to ask to speak, but anyway, we'll see what comes of that. Okay, so we'll go to the Clerk's update first.
Okay, so there's not much to update about, given that we've been on the Christmas break, and since we've got back, we've just been doing meeting stuff. So the number 2 Albert Road, obviously we decided at the last minute that we would apply for a variation for those conditions that were relating to the extension at the back. So we're kind of on with that. We've been in discussions, so that's the plan for that going forward. The SPIDs are still out, will be collected in the next few weeks. So there's no further update as yet on those. The only other thing that I think I need to update you on is the wall to the secret garden. So before Christmas, we had some storm damage, and also I think there was a bit of antisocial behaviour there. We had damage to fencing and other things as well. But some of the stones on the wall were looking very precarious, and it was decided that we would need to lower the height of the wall just to make it safe so it wouldn't fall. So we did cordon off the area whilst the work was taking place. It has now been decided that we can reopen that area to the public, but at the last FES meeting they did ask that we issue a press release just to give people a bit more information, just to say yes, it is reopened to the public, but still to be cautious whilst they're in that area. Obviously all the stone that we've taken is currently in storage, so we are paying to store that until we come up with some options of what we're going to do going forward. So I've got some contacts to speak to try and arrange site visits to see if we can come up with some viable options going forward. And then once they've been quantified and evaluated, then they will go to an FES meeting, and then obviously to the full council.
That's the most critical thing that we must learn from Pendle's mistake, is if any of the people that you've contacted use the word cement, just show them the door. This has to be lime. It has to move gently, this historic wall. There should be no cement near it, and that's been the problem. Cement doesn't move, but the wall has moved, and that's what's caused it to collapse, really, truthfully. And it's the work that Pendle did. So we need to learn from that mistake. Lime only.
Comments? Other comments? No? Are we all happy with that then? That report? Any questions on that report? No? Okay. Item 6 is the public forum, but we don't seem to have any speakers, but we've got a gentleman that's come to speak. So I don't know what is it that you want to speak about? Or
whether they consider it a viable idea. The committee and Colin and the town council and also the defence committee as well. Obviously, we're in the
You'll need to use a mic.
I was I expect it is not critical that Colin Town Council or anybody does not have to put out a Christmas tree for the downstairs.
all right.
I understand that. However, for the first time, God knows how many years, Colin has not had a Christmas tree. The only town, the only village, whatever in this surrounding area has been let down by numerous people in the sense we have not had a Christmas tree. So I've come up with an idea. I've found this Facebook group, and I've mentioned it to another councillor, not to mention on it. This councillor said, "What a fantastic idea! It's brilliant." I've just got that back. I don't know whether a few of you can see that, but that is the bed outside the library at home. The flower bed. And what they've done is they've edited the photo. They've took the tree out of the photo that's in there, and they've put a Christmas tree in place. But the whole one we stand is Christmas tree. It could be a tree of life, it could be an event tree, it could be everything. It's a permanent fixture. It's a one-off cost. It's not going to cost money every year. It's bright. It's central to the town. So I just wondered if the councillors and people thought of a viable idea.
Well, it would have to be looked at, and it would have to go to FES. It would have to probably come to events. But we hear what you say, and you got that website. You said, have you got a Facebook group or whatever it is? Can you forward it to the town clerk or to Nathan, please? And we'll. Does anybody else want to say anything? Yes, Councillor Robin.
Thank you, Chair. One most important question is, who actually owns the flower beds? Are they under Pendle Council? Is it County Council? LCC? Because obviously we couldn't just go along and plant a tree on LCC land. I think they'd be very unhappy. But in principle, it sounds like a good idea. Obviously, there could be some arguments that in common, because it's historic town, etc. We're going to have trees like that. They should be indigenous trees. We can get away with that because there are some indigenous.
I think we are going to look at the whole issue in the round, because these various people's got ideas. So I think we are going to look at it, and we'll come up with something for next year, hopefully. This year, yes, this year, sorry, yeah. But obviously, the more ideas we have, the more ideas we can look at all those ideas and then come up with a scheme.
Just quickly picking up on the motion about the gritty. I'm a proud hire in Colne and the surrounding towns and villages. And I started work at 3:30 on Sunday morning. And the M65 motorway, I know Sarah Grass has said that LC's done all the time. But for me as a driver, I've never felt this scared in my life. We're down to 5 miles an hour on the M65 motorway. I've never, ever experienced that.
We'll put that in our letter as well then. Thank you very much, Matthew. Yes, Sarah.
So I don't know whether you know, I think I did write to Gina, can't remember now. The cost of the tree that the Combe bid did was just £350. So that's not a lot of money, but Hartley Square. I've seen that, David, you've suggested putting it on the roof of Hartley Square, but I don't know whether that's possible. We could ask, but it was only £350. The reason that the Combe bid didn't actually pay for it this year is they received a quote, apparently, to erect it and decorate it of £4,000, which is obviously mad. I had a complaint from Tim Webber about the lack of the tree. And I told him what had happened, and he said that Barnfield Construction would erect it and decorate it for free in future years. So I don't think that there would be any problem of continuing with this after this unfortunate hiatus. The tree costs about £350. Cone Bid has the decorations for the tree. Barnfield Construction very generously would erect the tree in its current location. And my personal view is if we're trying to emulate that sort of rather sterile tree that's outside the library in Nelson as a possibility. I'm sorry, no one. Okay, yeah. It's a personal thing. I know some people love it. It's not for me. It's not my decision. That's just me putting my two penneth in. And agreeing with what Ian had to say, which is that I think that actually evergreen tree in that location outside the library would look like an alien feature, and we're probably better served by the little tree that's there that sort of spreads over. But I think we've got to consider all the options, look at them all, tick them all off, and look at what we've got. But we do have a possibility to just continue as we have been.
Well, and thank you, Mr. Eyre, for bringing that issue to our attention, but we were thinking about it and we will come up with something, okay? Thank you. Item 7 is reports from the Borough and County Council. Well, Councillor Sutcliffe isn't here, so are we on just the Borough? Yeah.
Offered a few things. Minutes from last time, we had all those planning applications, quite a few of them we didn't like. They've not crossed Cone area just yet, so numbers 3, 4 and 8 are still pending. The only other odd one was number 5, which was Birtwistle Avenue. This was as a permitted development notification only, and although we didn't have any objections to it, we said the applicant should ensure that the right of access is preserved. And apparently under these sorts of applications, you can't look at that unless the neighbour objects.
Specifically. So
that the neighbour has to object, and the neighbour did not object. So basically that one's got passed. Strange one, that one. I thought it was odd, and Neil.
Sorry, David. Did the neighbour know?
Yeah.
They
actually only wrote to the neighbour because it directly affects the neighbour for the permitted development, and therefore they write only to the neighbour saying, "Do you object in any way?"
I'm really surprised that neighbour didn't object.
And yeah, he didn't.
It's really surprising, but
yeah, I know it's an odd one, that one.
Anybody check they actually got that letter? They might have written to them, but did they receive it?
I don't know.
It's too late because it's.
We're not going to complain about Royal Mail as well, are we? Now? No, right. Other planning ones. So Cone area heard. This is one we don't like. This is echoed of one in Trawden last year, where any size development above 5 houses has an affordable housing condition put in.
In villages, it's 10 normally.
Oh, it's 10 normally. So anything sizable coming forward, thinking of the neighbourhood plan, thinking of the Labour targets for housing in Pendle and across the north, then obviously affordable housing percentages and numbers go in there. And as we saw in Trawden, this application was in Fulridge, and they came forward and said, could we remove the condition for affordable housing? Because if you keep it in, the development is not viable. So lo and behold, they'd hired some consultants. The consultants said, if you take the sales income, the increased costs, and the required amount to buy the land, it's negative. So therefore, the condition, we had no choice, our hands were tied, because we lost the appeal at the Trawden one last year when we said no and refused it. When it was appealed, they won. So this is exactly the same principle. It basically means affordable housing conditions are really not worth the paper they're written on.
I think in Cone and villages, any development that's got that in will get chucked out.
It'll get it varied away. So all this stuff about trying to protect greenfields, or if you have to sacrifice a greenfield, then you get some affordable housing. So there's some benefit coming back. We know the community infrastructure levy is 0. We know the affordable housing conditions can be varied away. So it's all terrible. We also had a couple of appeals. There was that funny looking wall on Castercliff Avenue, I think it was called, Castercliff Bank. And there was also a large porch on Ruskin Avenue, and both of them were allowed. Unbelievable. So again, very disappointed by that pair. The only other thing I want to tell you about is there's an extraordinary full council. You may know as Liberal Democrats that David Whip has put in a motion to a vote of no confidence in the leader of the council. So that's taking place on Wednesday the 29th. So, let you know, bit of theatre.
Okay. I've written in tiny writing, I've taken my glasses off. So we're all quite sad that Anissa is leaving Home Bid and joining Pendle Borough Council's economic regeneration team. And the CEO is leaving Pendle Council and going to Darlington Unitary. King George V playing fields at the last Cone area, we had quotes, and I didn't like the quotes. I mean, apart from which they were eye-wateringly expensive, but they all seemed very over-engineered and dominant. There were enormous expanses of concrete and tarmac and so on. I was envisaging little steps with railway sleepers and so on. I rang up Phil Riley, and Phil Riley said, when I got partway through the sentence, that's exactly what I was envisaging, Councillor Coburn-Price. I think the engineering department of Pendle Council have got a bit excited. So he's going to go away and get more modest quotes for a more modest thing that's perhaps less expanses of concrete. But we're also having a meeting with the team that wants to do the football on the higher plateau area, and hopefully we can find a way forward there so that there won't be any costs. They will pay for those maintenance costs. We are told that the Market Hall is both on track and on budget and will be ready for internal fit out in March, which is very, very positive. We're also told that Neil Watson is writing up the response post-consultation for the conservation area, proposed conservation area that encompasses parts of Keighley Road and a little bit of the park and Parry Bridge. So we hope to have that soon. With regard to my position in the climate emergency, I spent the afternoon writing to Jonathan Hinder as requested by the working group, and I covered some areas that are of interest to us in terms of our neighbourhood plan. Spoke to him about, or wrote about, empty homes, and we discussed last month. They don't come off the target, and they absolutely should, because that would incentivise Pendle Council, that is apparently hiring empty homes officer. Also wrote to him about viability and how that affects us in Cone. Also wrote to him about how there's no provision and there's no way that local planning authorities can, with evidence, prove the sort of housing that they want. So, for example, the demographics of our area show very clearly that we've got a dearth of older people's housing, and in a sense they block our housing market because they stay in their family homes because they haven't got suitable bungalows or nice flats to move into, and it's a real problem. We have that evidence base. We should be able to insist, not another load of 4-bedroom executive detached. I also wrote to him about the fact that they're all detached. They shouldn't be detached. Detached should be, certainly in terms of affordable housing, the exception rather than the rule. It is the wrong way round. The new climate emergency officer at Pendle Council has been busy applying for grants, and he's applied for a public sector decarbonisation grant. And I'm very sad to report that the executive asked him to apply only for Barnoldswick or West Craven Pool and also Nelson. So there's been no application for Cone, which makes me obviously very disappointed, very disappointed. But obviously I still want the other pools to win. I'm not that partisan, of course I do. Now, he also asked me to contact him about a funding round that is open to charities to make them more resilient. And I wrote to him all the charities I could think of. So everything from Open Door to Curry on the Street to SEAG to the Pendle Heritage Centre. I just literally wrote them all down with the contact details. The deadline for this funding round, rather unhelpfully, is tomorrow. But he said to me, what you should do, and I've asked him to write to all these charities individually, is register so that when the next funding round comes, you're good to go. And he said that he is an expert at grant writing, so he will support these charities to apply for resilience grants. So it's things like Cone Men's Shed, that kind of thing. We obviously have this ability now to support people in grant writing, and it's something that we need to signpost people to. Okay.
Have you the Citadel?
I included the Citadel?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that I have forgotten somebody, but I've tried my best.
There was something else I was going to ask you about. Oh, the cone pool not being included. I understand that was the independents on the executive that poo-pooed that, and I know the other Liberals on there were very upset that they couldn't get the cone pool as on there. Any questions for Councillor Cockburn-Price? Yeah.
Do you know when you mentioned that the market's back on track, did the acoustic specialist come in and have a look, see if they were able to find a solution?
All we know is that the acoustic specialist has been in, but we haven't had a response on that. We had an email today, but it didn't go into that detail. It is a question that we can follow up for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, back on the market. I know when we were doing the discussions a million years ago, we were talking about obviously carbon friendly, environmentally friendly. Are we on track for that as well, please?
Well, obviously, it's a reuse of an old building and trying to make it more resilient, putting in extra insulation, including potentially sound insulation. Will it work as well as a brand new building? No, it can't do. But all the embodied carbon of that building was spent in 1974. So in a sense, it's a win and it's not a win. It's equal. It probably balances each other out. I don't know.
We'll move on to item 8 then. So finances, the first paper is paper 8A, which is to receive a schedule of payments from the 11th of December. We've got the usual one plus the over £1,000. Any questions on here? No? Can I ask someone to propose? I propose Howard and Ian to second. All those in favour, please, thank you. The second item is item 8B, which is the summary budget for January. Any questions on that? Yes, Councillor Cockburn-Price.
Yes, thank you for that. So we're now about 3/4 of the way, just over 3/4 of the way through the year. I notice obviously we've got lots of unders and overs, and we've heard lots of tales about why there are unders and overs during the year. Just wanted an update really on playgrounds, which looks a little underspent or under budget, should I say, and whether there are plans for that or whether there's a bit of surplus there. And similarly, the nature reserve grants. Obviously, we started off with 5, then we took it to 15. So we're obviously anticipating some extra applications, but they don't seem to materialise.
I am expecting one to come in for Gib Hill.
Good.
They asked me to write it, but it has to be after tomorrow's meeting, which happens, by the way, here at 4 o'clock. If you're interested in Gib Hill, the Gib Hill Nature Reserve, hoping to change the name to Gib Hill Guardians and sort of deal with constitution banking and so forth. And then they've asked me to put in a bid to Gina for the agreed sum, which you were there as well. I think it was £7,500. No,
It was 5.
to start it off though. Oh,
That was what was offered. It's the same figure for any.
I know it was, but I thought in that meeting it's possible that I've misremembered it. Certainly Nelson have given more money.
I know Nelson gave 7.5, but I think we said 5
Oh,
because that's what we've said in our
Okay.
grant policy.
I'm glad we're having the
Do
conversation
the
now.
rest in April. then.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, thank you.
Okay. Playground?
Just to continue from that, there is nothing against putting a bid in now for 5 and putting another bid in for the 1st of April for the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Playgrounds?
Yes, and there are some things in the pipeline actually from the recent ROSPA inspections. We have spent
Okay.
a lot of money recently on trying to fix the zip wire at Alkincote. We've also had the bin's been burnt again to the ground, so we need to replace that.
Okay.
Graffiti is an issue at the moment. We're having to spend quite a lot of money on graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are bits of swings, etc. So they're and the money won't go far, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'll move this if you want after that.
I think by the sounds of it, Gina, you should write to the neighbourhood police team and ask for Alkincote to be put on their patrol priorities,
Yeah.
because this is madness. We're wasting money on nothing positive here, just
And
replacing what we've
They still
already
have
spent
funding
money
for Operation Centurion as well.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not just Alkincote, so it's King George's and Waterside as well.
Well, they do have the money from the Operation Centurion. They're still using that.
Mhm.
I think you should ask them to tap into it. It's not come up at Cone Area Safety Partnership. It's not come up.
Right.
Right. So can I have a proposer for the 8B? Thank you, David. Right, thank you, Councillor Anna Wood. All those in favour? Thank you. The next item is item 9, which is Town Council Fees and Charges 2526. You've got the paper there. Any questions? Excuse me. Yes,
The- I was going to say the policy is as what. I don't think any changes have been made to that. It just changes to the actual rates that we're charging.
Okay, that was my first question. So the rates have gone up by sort of small amounts of inflation
Just
here
a
and there.
small, yeah.
Okay. Other than that, absolutely fine. The only thing you've got is there's a typo on the wedding page.
Oh, okay.
Second paragraph up from the bottom, Cone Town Council, only one L.
Oh, right.
Council. And on the back page, you could probably do a little comma as well after the word provisions at the bottom paragraph. Other than that, absolutely fine. Happy to move it.
can I have, I've got a proposal from Councillor David Coburn-Price. Can I have a seconder? Howard Thomas? Oh,
Another. Oh, right.
all those in favour? Council? Thank you. Right, the next item is item 10, which is Town Council Budget 2025-20. It says 28.
So, as you know, the 15% budget was approved at the last full council meeting. However, we did decide to defer the decision for the increase to the precept before we knew what the tax base was for Cone. We now do have those details, as I've put in the report. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference to the actual taxpayer on the amount that they pay. However, it does actually give us, I think it's about £9,735 extra if we decide to go for the 15%.
Who needs to? Who wants to speak on this, or are you going?
I'll move that. It was discussed at last week's FES, where it was just decided that for the small amount of all the work involved in working all the figures out again, it's better to have that in a little cocoa tin just in case. Maybe it can supplement some grants somewhere, or a bit of playground equipment or something. So I'm quite happy to move that we set the increase at 50, or whatever the correct words are, because it's a preset of blah 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 blah, and I've no idea what the figure is without looking it up. But
I've already pre-done the form. So yeah.
I thank you for that, but some people weren't at that meeting, so maybe we need to give people a chance to ask the questions first. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with Howard. Obviously, we discussed it last time round. We said 15% was right. Let's get the council tax base through. We got an extra 0.9% on that, so that takes it to an overall increase for us of 15.9, which is good. Picking up on obviously the financial review before, and your scene setting comments in para 5 and 6, where you talk about the amount of reserves we've got and the amount of earmark reserves. So I note in para 18 it talks about we've built in a contingency, which is absolutely the right thing to do. All budgets need that, and obviously that gets put into earmark reserves to help out in the various pots of things we do. I was looking at the things you talk about spending on in para 1, things like the boilers, for example, the big sluggy costs like that. Never mind the huge roof we've got. But I think the one thing I would, not for this year, but I note in Appendix 2, where you've got this sort of flow chart across 3 years. Yes, you've got the 16% or 15.9 coming through from 24.5 to 25.6, but then you've only built in a 3% increase for the year after, and then an 8% increase the year after that. Because what it seems you're doing is taking that contingency out of the corporate governance line, when in reality what you should do is roll that one forward in the budget. So I think essentially what you're looking at is a trajectory where, yes, 16% is what we've agreed for this year, or 15% to the precept, and then you want to think about something of the order of the 8 to 10% for next year and the year after. That then allows you to replenish the earmark reserves, which look well below what they should be. For a council that does so much and has so much potential on the horizon, if Pendle Council disappears in 2 or 3 years' time with the evolution and all that sort of stuff, then the pressure is going to be on us to make sure we've got the things we want. So I think, although we're not moving on years 2 and 3, I would suggest for years 2 and 3 we think about what the precept goes to in those years to make sure we've got the chance to build up earmark reserves. We don't want to necessarily have to go and borrow money to pay for boilers. If we've got the earmark reserve set aside for that, we build that up. We've got our contingency. We've got another contingency coming the year after. We've got chance to do those sort of things and build up those reserves. Is what earmark reserves are for. Projects come and projects go, and they can be spread over 2, 3, 4 years or so, and delivered accordingly. So I'll second the 15%, whatever number that is, for a Band D council taxpayer. And obviously to make a suggestion for the future for appropriate increases to do the projects we want.
Does anybody want to comment on what Davis said? No? Okay, so we've got a proposal and a seconder for the 15%, which how much is it for a Band D per week?
It is
what, 55 pence?
No,
Right.
the actual
Is she asking
how much they will pay or the increase?
Well,
Goes from £191.60 up to £220.34.
Yes.
I don't know what
So
that is.
that's the
The
annual.
increase of 30 quid is approximately 55p a week.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So somebody will ask me, and I'll have to be £30. Right.
Oh, yeah. If you look at that, the breakdown. that's
Right.
the
Thank
thing.
you. Thank you. I'm not really a finance person. So we've had a proposer and a second. All those in favour of the precept as spoken about. Right. Thank you very much, Council. Item 11. We're parking that. It'll come back next.
Hopefully for next full council.
Yeah. Do you want to know? Have you said why we can't?
It's mainly due to the quotes that we had are quite old now, so we want to get companies to re-quote for the cost of changing the system, just to make sure that we're applying for the right amount of loan, etc.
I
So,
don't think we've had them.
no, we haven't. So
Well, let's hope that it's not a loan, as per what David was saying. But I think that actually you should be, you've got the time, contacting the East Lancashire Chamber, contacting the climate emergency officer, who's called Victor Esquire at Pendle Council, to see what grants you could go for. Let's see if you could apply for a public sector decarbonisation grant in the next round. Let's see what things are open. You might be surprised. And I think ultimately, when this building is properly on zones, it'll be so much cheaper to run. It's at the moment it's on or it's off, and we come here for a warm. We've always been honest about that. But
Lovely and warm.
it's lovely and warm, but it's a bit mad, really, to heat this immense volume at this temperature for the whole building.
you want to go in my office?
I've heard about your office. But
Apart from your office.
I think ultimately it will be cheaper to run a new system. But
This fella's called Victor Esquire.
Equire. There's no S in it. There's no
Equire.
Equire.
Right. Yeah.
Gina, if you remind me, I'll send you all his contact details tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, do we think that's a good idea? Yeah. Yeah. I do. And item 12 is a Great British Rhythm Blues Festival. An update from Nathan.
So all the main stages have now been contracted. So we've got the Pendle Hippodrome, the Exchange Project, and the Little Theatre. Colne Blue Society are 85% of the way there with the full main stage lineup. With they're going to be starting drip feeding the main stage acts from Monday. The stage has been booked. And other various operational elements have been booked in advance. We're currently having discussions with Pendle Borough Council about the waste management. And tickets are on sale. So we've sold 84 tickets so far, 19 camping pictures, but obviously with us starting to drip feed the lineup, we can expect an increase in ticket sales over the next couple of weeks, months, so as we start to release the lineup. And Barnfield Construction have agreed today to sponsor the festival again as the main sponsor. So yeah, that's it.
Can I ask if we've got any new headliners, new people that we've not seen before?
You'll have to wait and see.
Well, I shall also ask about whether you've got any further reviews using the Muni or the the lesser Muni, the Albert Room, as it's now called.
So Nina and Simon from Colne Blue Society had a meeting with Frank at the Muni, and the Muni's plans were to be an official fringe venue for this year, with the hopes being becoming a main stage again in 2026. However, Frank's now left the Muni. Yeah, so I think the conversations are going to need to be had again to finalise everything.
I spoke to the managing director of Pendle Leisure, and he was keen that they should still, they should use at least the Albert Room if we could. But right? But I didn't know that Frank had gone. Right. Any questions from you? No. Item 14 is 13. Sorry, is coming in.
So we're just waiting, aren't we? I think it's probably time we had a little poke, a little prod.
Yes, I will do.
Yeah.
You did say first week back, didn't you? Really?
Yeah. Let's show that we're still very keen to do this. I've, as I alluded to earlier, have spent the afternoon writing to Jonathan Hinder on behalf of the Climate Emergency Working Group, but a lot of those themes overlap. So I've asked for ministerial responses, especially with the issue of viability, because what we need to do next is weigh the policies that we've got now, which obviously Michael Wellock is doing. We weigh the success of those policies against the new NPPF wording. And I think that where we come in is we weigh the success of the policies of how they've actually worked in the real world, admittedly against the old NPPF, but we can see where things have been successful or failing. So it gives us a really good starting point. So as soon as we've got that, it's something to share, then we would ask everybody on the working group to reread it with their critical heads on, to read what Michael Wellock sent us and to reread our neighbourhood plan. And then we can have the meeting and move things further on. But ultimately, I don't know what's going to happen generally. I've just been in a webinar of Conservative councillors where they've been talking about the devolution. And it seems quite clear that whether we're a priority area or we're not a priority area, Pendle Council, as it is now, almost certainly won't exist in 2 years' time. And obviously, therefore, we won't have the same sort of super local powers of determination, which means that we as the town council can still give our opinion, but it's not going to a local body anymore. And that does concern me. It worries me, and that places a lot more focus on the importance of the neighbourhood plan, because the Labour government still believe in neighbourhood plans and what they do, and I'm very grateful for that. So it's our little tool in our armoury in this time of change. It's our little windbreak on the beach that we might be really grateful for in the months ahead. So we do need to progress this, even though the Pendle local plan, which is progressing and now has a timetable, and they're saying, oh, it could be made in December of this year. What's that worth really if Pendle Council isn't going to exist very soon after it? You know, obviously that local plan will go and they'll start again straight away. So I think we've got to just do our little bit. That's all we can do. Just do our little bit, be aware of what's going on around us, and try our hardest, and that's what we're doing.
As I understand it, when we get this new authority, whether it's based in Blackburn or Preston or wherever, if they do any consultation, will be that they'll have to statutorily consult with a town or parish council, whatever that level is. And I think we on the east of Pendle are quite well. We've got one in Colne, one in Trodden, one in Barnolds, which is a town council. So, you know, our side, it might be awful, but it'll be less awful, I hope, because we've got we've got a say, or at least we can speak to them. Whereas in other places that don't have a parish or a town, they'll just say this is what's going to happen, and you have no say in it at all. So thank you, Lord Greaves, for saying you should get parish and town councils, because they may go.
Excuse me, it came from a scrutiny group of Pendle Council that I can't quite remember who chaired it. Oh, it was me.
But Lord Greaves has had a lot to do with it, isn't it? Item 14 is plans. We've got a plan. We've now 7 on the list. Have you all got new list? Yeah. The first one is 24. The first one is 24/0478/LBC. It's Tudor Barn, Langroyd Road, Cone. Got any? Where is it?
I mean, I think there's one thing you need to be mindful of with this one, and it isn't all that clear in the planning application itself that it is, but it is actually a retrospective. It's already been done.
Oh, is it? All right. Oh, is there anything we can say?
Well, I think obviously it doesn't comply with best practice of heritage for a listed building. So I think what we're best doing here is, and though this could be difficult because the chap at Grove Lancashire has retired, but we should ask for, this is important. It's important in itself as a listed building, but it's also important in the setting of Langroyd Hall. So I think we should ask that there is an analysis by a heritage expert, and that is put in the officer's report, as opposed to just the officer's report, because it's worthy of that.
Yeah. Chair, if we're going back to its heritage, it ought to look like a barn, which it's never going to look like again, because it has been converted from a barn to it, and you know, it's more in the context of that little enclave, for want of a better word, than the hall itself. I'm not quite sure what that picture shows.
On the side, should be the other way around.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. I'm still not sure what it's showing.
Upside down. There we are. There is a Pendle SPD on conversion of agricultural buildings. This is separate from its listed building status. And if you read it, the whole thing is to do with still being able to read its original purpose. So it shouldn't ever really look like a house. It should look like what it was. You can still read that. Obviously, I'm a borough councillor, so I won't be drawn on whether I still think that that is successful in this aim.
I think one of the problems might be that garage door, although it looks like it does now, that obviously if you go back far enough, it would have had an arch on it. So I think, you know, there may be a certain amount of going backwards, looking at what the plans were.
It's interesting that with listed buildings, there's no back date. So, you know, say, I don't know, any of you that don't live in a listed building, make a sneaky and incorrect change to your building. If nobody notices for 10 years, frankly, you've got away with it and there's nothing that can be done, even if it's in contravention of planning rules. That's not the case with listed buildings. There is no time limit. It's something that could have been done without listed building consent 50 years ago. And, you know, if they've gone on Cone Lancashire now and then and seen what it looked like in 1975, then, and if it's been done without listed building consent, that's a question. I don't know whether it has, but then there is no time limit at all.
I'm guessing not, which is why they're applying now.
Are we happy with
You can always put it right. There's always the opportunity to put something right. Actually, do you know what? That doesn't matter in listed buildings. The liability lies with the owner. So obviously we have a listed building, and whoever owned Hayroyd before, obviously we know who it was, replaced a lead down pipe with plastic, obviously without getting listed building consent for that. But that liability lies with us and not with them. They've sold that house.
Ian, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I agree. You know, we need to stick to principles. I think we've seen over the years too many examples of people flouting the laws, if you want, and listed building, etc., and just done their own thing and then just got away with it. Then say 20 years down the line, somebody complains and, well, it's not fair on the new owners. We need to no. It doesn't matter if it's not in keeping with our plans, our development plan, then we should object strongly and say, no, it should be returned to its original status. End of story. Irrespective of how many, we should do it. And we should make an example to everybody else on this.
Any other comments on there for Gina? No? Can we go on to the next one then, please? It's 24/0877/HHO. It's 8 Manor Road, Colne. It's erection of a single-storey garage extension. There must be others on there that've got garage extensions, I suppose.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's not actually. It extends the garage, but it's not making a second garage. It's just making that utility and storeroom.
And then, if others are.
I assume they've
Just looks what?
I assume they've put the door like that on the front so that it does look more like a garage than not have windows in it. But if you look at the plan, it says store, or I can't read it.
Yeah, it just says store.
Store.
Utility at store.
That's where they'll be putting their dustbins and their washing machine. Oh, is that right? Are we okay? Well, not okay with that, but not commenting. The next one is 24/0878/ADB. It's Business Park, White Walls Drive, Unit 2. Advertisement consent display of internally illuminated 12-metre totem sign. Ooh, it's looking very busy, is that site, isn't it? Terrible. It's like something on the motorway.
The one that they're applying for, you can just see it on the. I can't remember what number it is now, but it's the tallest red blob on it. It's right on the corner.
It's the top one up.
It's right near the corner. There's in amongst the lot of plans. There's one that shows it better, but it's right on the corner of the site there and the roundabout. I'm not sure how anybody going westwards from that roundabout doesn't know that lot. I don't know how they can miss it. It's so large and colourful and signposted, even with extra signs, temporary signs dotted along the boundary, extolling you to go and have a cup of coffee and goodness knows what. But having said that there is probably as much chance of us getting it turned down as there is of jumping over the moon. But I think it's worth saying we think it's the sign that brought the camels back. I know the county are very keen to say any maintenance, etc., has to be done from inside the site and not on the motorway because they won't give permission.
Sarah, you had your hand up, and then Ian.
I think now I'm looking to David to correct me. That we turned down one of these in this site at Colne area. Yeah. We did. So
it was much further round.
It was much further round. Yeah. So it was on the motorway. So if you see that it's at the top right, it was much more. Can you see where there's a slight point at the top of the map? It was there.
Originally there.
And we pointed out, yes, it was there. And we pointed out that actually, if you're driving along the motorway, that's a distraction, and nor could you do anything about it because you'd be in the wrong lane. So we turned it down at Cone area, and they've come back with this one. Now, potentially, what we've got here is quite a lot of visual clutter now going on at this roundabout. And I wonder whether, and I don't know, have we got a point by saying that this close to the road with the motorway and the roundabout, this 12 metre, and it lavishly says all the businesses that it's got on it, and you know how it's illuminated all was. This is one of the policies of the neighbourhood plan that we were dismayed about, because this is outside the settlement boundary, and we felt on very secure ground in saying that it couldn't be too bright, and that was poo-pooed by Neil Watson, because we've got a dark skies policy. So we need to look at that again in the neighbourhood plan. But I just wonder whether that location, they've moved it closer into Cone, is actually a poor location. Yeah.
If you're travelling east, you know, you're coming towards the roundabout. Then one of the reasons why we objected to the first location was because you're going to be looking over there to see it, and that's distracting and dangerous. And now they've done it so that you've almost committed to which lane you're going to be in. Are you going to go left up North Valley, or are you going to go right towards Boundary Mill and Cone? And this thing is on the extreme right. Yeah. But that's advertising.
Anthony, did you want to put in there?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Sarah was saying. I'd love us to reject this, because how many signs do they need? They've already got, how many? I think got about 2 on there. And last year as well, they decided to go down North Valley and stick up loads of little signs on every single lamppost heading in that direction, which they weren't allowed to do. So I'd love us just to reject it, just to.
Thank you, Anthony. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I think somebody needs to point out to this gentleman that this is Cone, not Las Vegas. We do things differently in Cone, and we don't need lots of intrusion into dark skies, even though we don't officially have a dark sky. In reality, it's also because it's next to a nature reserve, and people need to take into account. It's not that it's in the middle of Cone or on the top of it. It's next to a nature reserve. And that amount of bright lights, etc., is going to have a negative impact on the nature reserve. And I think, well, obviously, we can't ask for the applicants to be taken outside and shot, unfortunately, which is a shame. But I think we should say, no, enough's enough. You know, if you want to put all these, go somewhere else, like Las Vegas. Just don't bring them to Cone.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I won't go as far as Councillor Robinson, but it's in the wrong place altogether. All right, if you're coming down North Valley Road, you see that, you say, oh, I might go there, but you still got to go round Boundary Mill, then all the way up to Wine Walls to come back round to come back in. Oh, yeah. I know they've got I've just realised it. But there are about 4 or 5 different mega signs there. Why do we need a 12-foot one? 12-metre one, sorry. 12-metre one. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. Again, we've got the, like Councillor Robinson said, we were next to a nature reserve. We've got housing across the other side of the motorway, where there's a lot of people with who are trying to get to sleep, that going because all right, you might have some trees there, but that light is still going through the trees. Yeah, but I'm saying what the thing is, I can actually see that from where I live in Nelson. I can see that from my house in Nelson. So what chance of the people just the other side of the motorway have got? This is absolutely outrageous. I'm against it.
Well, it's
You can
it's
actually see it from the Halifax Road going past Nelson Golf Club. You can see the. When I say see it, you can just see the lights.
it's a lot of light pollution down there. Yeah, 40 foot. So, but what can we do? What can we say?
We are the town council. We're not making a decision. I think we give them what we feel. I think we do. I think we say what we feel. And, you know, we point out that we do have a policy in our neighbourhood plan that says outside the settlement boundary, we're not expecting all this light pollution. It should be properly designed to minimise it. We actually asked at Cone Area whether it could be switched off at certain times of day or dimmed at certain times. And we were told absolutely not.
Alice?
I'd like us to reference the nature reserve, the close proximity of the nature reserve on that one.
Yeah, yeah. But it's a shocker. I mean, even just road safety, if you're looking at that, you're not looking at the cars, are you? Yeah. On a number of points, it's not acceptable. Got that? Yes. Then the next one is 24/0842/FUL 2B Keighley Road. Yes, Sarah.
I think we should actively welcome it. New business in the town centre, positive, driving footfall. I hope it's a success.
Yes, Anthony.
My only concern with this is lack of parking, lack of on-street parking around that area. There is an issue with parking around that area at the moment because the flats above are illegally parking adjacent to the building. This has been raised obviously with traffic wardens, and they're not willing to get involved. It's spoke to LCC; they're not willing to get involved with it, but I know there is obviously the adjacent yard, but they don't own the yard, which if they did, they could obviously turn that into a car park for it. I mean,
it's one across the road, isn't there?
Yeah, there is that.
It's not Trinity Baptist, isn't it? That's the back, and then there's a car park in front of it, I think.
Yeah, that's all my only issue with potentially that on-street parking. But I welcome obviously any new business into the town. It's just as long as we can avoid it. Yeah.
Well, they'd have to park next to the union, wouldn't they? And walk across. Yeah. Yes, Ian.
Thank you, Charles. I was just going to say this has been raised in the past with no park with like a car park. There is actually in that area quite a lot of car parking, and it's just that sadly a lot of people refuse to walk any more than 2 meters from the car. If they're not actually parked virtually next to the doorway, they don't want to walk. Well, stop being lazy. Yeah, it's only a couple of minutes from next to the union. You've got the Red Lion car park. You've got Midgley Street. There's lots and lots of car parks. So I was just saying to people, stop whinging, get off your backsides and walk that extra couple of minutes. It's a perfect place to be. You know, we had problems when it was a nightclub. If you don't want this, okay, let's use it as a nightclub again. Let's have the horrendous problems. Let's have the bloodshed that was spilt out there once every Friday, Saturday night. Or do we have this?
I think we could. I think as long as the people who own the property makes it clear where the parking is for the people who come and book play with the children, and as long as they say please park on such and such, then I'm in favour of it. Are we all right with item 5? It's 5. It's 25/0006 HHO. It's 1 Castley Road. It's erection of a front garden wall with a picket fence. number.
It is Fern Street. It's
Have you got a picture with it looking straight on as opposed to above?
But all this row, I think they have loan drive, but no. I think it's the one across from Clark Street. I don't think there's any other ones like that.
No. No, it's not. No, look, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Two out one way now.
Yes, 2 points. It says 2 points on the line. So it's contrary to the Pendle development plan, essentially at that height, again, by the highway. And I think we should just leave it at that. It's contrary to the. I'm sorry, I'm terribly short-sighted. It looks like 2 meters from here. Well, there you are. So the actual the Pendle development plan says that the highway height, albeit that we just lost appeal at 1.1, is 1 meter. So it's not like it's close or anything. It's not close.
Yes.
Yeah, as Sarah Cobb has just said, it's that 2 meters. It's against planning permission. If the picket fence was from the soil up to 1 meter, fine. But it's on top of a 1 meter wall, so it's against all regulations.
I don't think we should have any fences at all on this street because it was built. They're like semis, but it's all open plan with just lawns and drives, and it's quite a nice street because you can see everything.
Well, as was the one we lost at appeal, that's all open plan. It's probably worth noting in our response that they could be entirely within their rights to plant a hedge. And we encourage hedges.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Number 6 is 22/0003. It's for information only, isn't it? It's
Chair, these last two have had decision notices sent out. I looked at them earlier.
Just says information only.
yeah. Right, well, we won't bother ourselves with that one. Okay. Gina, have we had any correspondence?
no, not.
No.
I emailed Nathan about some information I received about how to make your events more carbon neutral.
Yeah, I thought that was going to the events committee.
Okay, I felt that was a general thing
Yeah.
that we can, because obviously Alice and I, to a certain extent, we've been picking away at things, haven't we? Talking about polystyrene trays. It's more helpful to look at the whole thing in the round, but it's an opportunity for the future.
Do you want it to come to the next meeting? No, no.
If it could go to the events committee, absolutely.
Well, date and time. Items for the future month's agenda.
I've got 2. One, over the months, but I've tried not to mention it. There's the whole.
Oh, yeah.
I tried not to mention it. I'd just love to know when's it coming back and will it work? Because quite often as well, before when it didn't work, I constantly thought I didn't know what time it was. And I was just like, 20 to 10. And then the second one I touched on earlier, which is about this devolution. And Mary as well, talking about how fortunate we are to be our town council. I have discussed to you before my concerns of being just like taken over. And we have, I think, two things that we'd really like to protect. And I really do think that we should use these next few months to think of it. One, and David is gloomy about it, and I understand why, because it's an expense, are the free car parks that we've got throughout the town. Because there's no question about it. If another authority comes in, it's literally almost the first thing that they do, and they do it across the patch. They wouldn't look at individual situations. We're so different from Burnley. You hear Pendle Council officers going, parking in Burnley raises their council £1 million. Burnley is not the same as Cone. It's just not the same kind of town at all. So car parks, I appreciate that's an expense. But then the other thing that I would really think that we should try to at least investigate, and I know that you've started, is of course the Mooney, because I can't pronounce Cone, so I have a disability there. So I just feel that we should carry on with that. The Pendle officers are well aware that their council is not long for this world. So perhaps they will be listening sympathetically, as well as thinking, well, at the moment it has been an expense that's been taken off our hands, So I just feel we should continue to press with those and perhaps bring them back as standing items, because the months soon tick away, don't they?
We agree that there should be a standing item, even if who agrees and who doesn't agree? Hang on, why don't you want them as a standing item?
Because it's just an excuse to go over the same ground every time. Well,
I can use the clerk's update for anything.
Yes, yeah,
And do it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure we'll all be doing. We'll be speaking to people privately, people who are involved in this, around that as well. Yeah. Well, we will, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I heard in the report before about the fact that Barnoldswick Pool, Nelson Pool is being decarbonised. We've got our own leisure centre there. What's happening to that? Are we going to lose it, or what? That is something else that we should be looking at as well, because obviously through the devolution, Pendle Leisure Trust might fold as well. So we need to know what is going to happen to that.
And on the car parks one, can I ask that Gina asked Steve to do a report on what he thinks the cost of taking them over would be? I would guess it's 50 grand plus, probably nearer 80, because the business rates is over 17 grand just on the car parks. Then they're to maintain and sweep and clean, etc. If you're going to carry on running the this system, which I think you'd have to do, otherwise some people who work in town will park there all day and there's nowhere for shoppers to park. So I think you'd have to do that. So you're looking at a person's wage, which is 25 grand again. That's where I've come up with the 50 grand. It would give us a better steer as to whether we're 100% against doing it or whether we wanted to look at it a bit deeper if Steve was to put us some sort of a price together as to what he thought it would cost. Can I ask that Gina ask Steve to do that and bring it back, not necessarily at next meeting, but within next 2 or 3 meetings?
I think also that we might be lucky if Pendle Council wants to offload them, that they may resurface them and reline them, because that's the most expensive
Not when they
thing.
not when they know they're dead in water in 2 months. They won't. They'll spend money in Nelson. Well,
And help slightly because I've asked some of these questions. So the fines currently that Pendle Council generates from Cone car parks almost exactly nullifies the cost of the person that issues the fines. So it's not a profit-making situation. It's just they cancel each other out. We at Cone Area, I admit that we've not been wildly successful, but we have been steady away doing little jobs. So, for example, we paid several £1,000s for a new lighting standard for the Market Street car, the Market Arcade car park, the one that's behind the Market Arcade. It had no lighting. We've repaired the lighting in the Nelson Street car park. We've done some things on the shrubbery. We've done some resurfacing at Queen Street. This is all from Cone Area Committee. This is not from Pendle Council central budget. But we've been doing that really, not just because we care about the car parks, but to try and nibble away at these tasks. And we've been doing them sort of every sort of quarter, something else, to try to get them into a better situation. But they have pot marks, the potholes, they're not in a good standard. I do fully accept that. I do think they're so important to the business in the town.
regards the pools, Chairman, my thoughts on that are, and I hope I'm wrong about the pools, but my thoughts on that are, if we do end up being part of a larger Blackburn unitary, I think we'll be lucky to end up with one pool, never mind two.
Well, that is my argument. I think if any of you go back further from two, and you've got one in check, and you've let the land go in, you haven't got the option of bringing it back. I think very careful about the communication. Go back to the one, because that would be easy.
Yeah, but the one in Nelson isn't a proper pool, is it? It's a shore. It's like going into the sea. It's like this deep, and you can't swim in it at all. So I don't know why they call it a pool, because it isn't a pool.
Thank you, Chair. On car parks, it's always been an issue. It's not so bad in the centre. I'm thinking, for example, like Primer. I've only just found out tonight, Primer Community Centre, the only viable parking is across the road in the station car park. Not anymore. Now, Northern Rail, bless their cotton socks, have decided to charge people. But there is no ticket machine. No ticket machine. Instead, what you have to do is either phone up a number and hopefully get through to somebody who knows what they're doing, which could be difficult, or going online. So if you haven't got a smartphone, there's no parking. And I think that is actually quite pathetic from Northern Rail at the moment. So, you know, people using the, again, our people who are using the Primer Centre actually going to be warned not to park on the Northern Rail car park, or they'll get charged. If you don't get a ticket, by the way, you never issued a ticket, you don't have to display a ticket. You have to phone up and get permission and then pay online, and it's 50p an hour or something daft. If you don't, it's a statutory £50 charge. And it's pathetic.
They should put their attention to actually getting the train now, rather than actually.
Well, that's the idea. Well, that's the idea. You see, if you have to wait 3 hours for a train, that's like £1.50. If it's 50p an hour, it's not. You know, they've got to make the profit somewhere.
Right. Well, that's that. Well, yeah. So car parks we need to think about. Are you happy with that? We're not making any decision, but I mean, if they were charged, though, it would affect the businesses. It's like people saying, well, we need a bypass, and you think, well, no, we don't, because they wouldn't be going through Corn, would they? So anyway, yeah. So put that on the list as well. We've got we've got
We've got car park.
car parks. What else have we got? Swimming pool.
Municipal hall.
Hmm?
The municipal hall.
And the municipal hall, right? Yeah. So we'll have. Well, they might not be standing items, but we'll make sure they're up. They come. When there's something to report, and if any of us have any, get any information to bring it here. Okay. Date and time of next meeting is Tuesday, the 18th of February at 7 o'clock. Everybody, okay. Well, thank you for